What's up, boys? It's Nick from Team Table 501 here. I am the king of the scrubs, and today I'm going to bring you my Jeskai controlled deck tech for Guilds of Ravnica Standard. Now, this is the deck that I took to my PPTQ last weekend, and I ended up bubbling in 10th place. So, really close to another top 8 on the resume, but hey, what are you going to do? Sometimes the magic gods just hate you. And it was weird, too, because we knew tables 1, 2, and 3 were going to draw into the top 8. I thought I was out, but when I checked the match slips on 4 and 5, it turns out that both of the players at each of those tables had a draw, and they had already played against each other, so they couldn't play again. So each of them got a pair down. So it meant that if the pair downs won their matches, and since I was undefeated I was undefeated until I took my 2 losses, it would mean that I would have better breakers than those two, so I would be able to sneak into the top 8 as either 7th or 8th seed. One of the pair downs won at table 4, so it meant that, okay, I won my match. If the other pair down wins, then I'm in 8th. Life is great. And then he lost. So, what are you going to do? Anyway, the link to the deck list will be in the description down below, just in case you don't want to hear me go on for 10 minutes. Totally understandable. Also, links to my Facebook and Twitter are in the description down below, so go add me as a friend, go follow me, I post cool shit. And without further ado, let's get into this deck tech. So, like I said, this is Jeskai control for Guilds of Ravnica Standard, so I'm going to start off with the mana base. There are 8 shock lands, 4 steam vents, 4 sacred foundry. Hollowed Fountain's going to make the mana so much better. And then there are 12 check lands, 4 sulfur falls, 4 Clifftop Retreat, 4 Glacial Fortress. And then for my basic lands, I played 3 islands, 2 mountains. Most lists are playing like 5 islands or 6 islands, or they're playing like 3, 2, and a basic plains. I don't like that, just because you want to have the ability to play your Niv Mizzet and your Crackling Drake. On curve, along with still having the ability to represent either counter magic or card draw spells. So, playing extra islands doesn't give you the ability to do that. And playing the basic plains is just bad because you're not playing Field of Ruin, so you can't just go tutor it up. You have to hard draw it, and it feels real bad. Because it means that if you draw plain Sulfur Falls, your Sulfur Falls doesn't enter untapped. So instead of those, I'm playing a 1-up Detection Tower in my mana base. This card's actually busted in this deck because you have so many ways of just killing stuff that once you make either your opponent lose hexproof and their creatures lose hexproof, you're just able to wipe their entire board clean. You don't have to 2-for-1 yourself to out Carnage Tyrant, which is the main reason this card's even in the deck. It is counterintuitive with Niv. However, it does work well with Niv once you've established both online, because then you can go make your guys lose hexproof, and then you can start going like, okay, ping that creature, ping that creature, ping that creature, ping you, every time you draw a card and cast a spell. So it's really, really powerful with that. And again, fuck Carnage Tyrant. That's the only reason I'm playing this card. I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, making it lose hexproof means you can kill it with Ral. You can use Justice Strike to kill it. You can get rid of it with Seal Away. You can get rid of it with a Teferi Tuck. So, super good. I'm playing 26 lands. Normally, I play 27 in my control decks, but this deck has a problem with flooding sometimes, where in the late game, you're out of cards or you're near out of cards, and you need to just like find a win condition, and drawing a land is not what you want to draw. So, speaking of win conditions, I play 2 Crackling Drake and 2 Niv Mizzet. Oh, I'm sorry. Crackling Drake is actually busted. This card's stupid. Like, most of the time when you play this, it's either on turn 4, it's on curve, it's fine, it's just a 1-4 or a 2-4, it's a beefy blocker, or it's turn like 15, it has like 12 power, and it can just kill your opponent in 1 or 2 turns. And Niv is obviously, it's got to be one of the top 3 cards in the format. It's between Niv and Carnage Tyrant for the best card in the format right now, and my money is on Niv. This card is fucking busted. The fact that it's uncounterable, it flies, so it's super hard to deal with. Whenever any player casts a instant or sorcery, you get to draw a card, and then whenever you draw a card, you get to deal a damage to anything. So Niv is a way to wreck Planeswalkers. It closes out the game super quickly because it just hits your opponent for 5 every turn. Like, and I'm not playing 4 Niv. And the reason I'm not playing 4 Niv is because I'm not playing Treasure Map. And the reason I'm not playing Treasure Map is because that card is fucking garbage in this deck. So, Treasure Map... My problem with Treasure Map is that it's either mana ramp or it's card draw. It's not both. You have to use the treasures to either draw cards, which doesn't get you into Niv, or you have to use it for mana ramp to get into Niv, and then you can't draw cards, so Niv doesn't deal any damage. That's my problem. And Dive Down is just such a shitty card in this deck, because if you don't find the Niv, then this Dive Down does nothing. Like, it's a dead card. I'd much rather have an Opt or a Shivan Fire. So, that's why I'm not on the Turbo Niv build of this deck. I'm on Crackling Drakes, because they help you stabilize. It's another win condition. Yeah. On to the instance for Opt. I wanted to play... I was testing out Shivan Fire, but there just weren't enough lands to have a red source into play untapped on turn 1 for me to for it to be really effective. And it's pretty dead in the mirror, whereas this just cycles itself, so... And you can play Niv on turn 7, leave up a blue source, cast Opt, and deal 2 damage, so... 2 Justice Strike. One of the best removal spells in the format. 2 Syncopate. I fucking hate this card, but it's really decent because on the draw, you're able to snag a bunch of 3 and 4 drops if your opponent's playing a Llanowar Elf deck. So you can counter their Vraska, you can counter their... Brontodon or Midnight Reaper. Against the Weenie decks, you can counter Benalia. And in the Mirror Match, it snags an early Azcanta, an early Chemister's Insight. And in the mid to late game, once you're in a counter war, you can... this is like the best last counter spell, because your opponent's not going to have the mana to pay, because they're using their mana to cast card draw or counter spells. So, I mean, I still hate this card. I think it's terrible in the Settler Wreckage decks, but... I mean, it's fine. Like, you can play Negates or something if you want over these, but I think your deck wants 8 total counter spells, so I'm on 8 total counter spells right now. 2 Expansion Explosion. This is a win condition. Simple as that. This card is fucking busted. Like, I don't understand why people have been cutting this from their list. Like, sure, it's not good against the Weenie decks, but your matchup against the Weenie deck is already so strong that, like, why do you care? Like, you're playing 8 board wipes in your main deck, or 6, you're fine. Like, and Explosion plus Niv is so dirty, because Explosion deals damage for you drawing cards, and Niv deals damage for you drawing cards. So you're essentially just Bane-firing your opponent, and you're drawing a buttload of cards. So, it can copy counterspells in the mirror. The funniest thing this can do, though, is you can have it copy your opponent's find, and you can get back your Niv Mizzets after they die. So at the PPTQ, I just did the expansion loop, really, where I would just, like, okay, with your find on the stack, copy it, hold priority, copy it, and I would just get back, like, all my Drakes and all my Nivs, and then I would just be like, okay, my turn, Drake, Niv, kill a thing, go. They'd cast their Carnage Tyrants and Jaylight Rangers that they found, and I would just go Crackling Drake, like, Deafening Clarion and stuff, so... Like, yeah, this helps you copy your Deafening Clarions as well, so that you can wipe the board of Carnage Tyrants. 2 Essence Scatter. It's just really good. Countering creatures is kind of important, obviously. And then 4 Ionize. I know some people are playing Sinister Sabotage over this card. I think Ionize is just better for the fact that it's easier to cast on your mana. Or it's easier to cast because getting blue-red is easier than getting blue-blue on turn 3. And the 2 damage that this deals is kind of significant when you're a Crackling Drake deck, because it essentially gives your Drake 3 extra power from putting this in the graveyard and the 2 damage. So it means that you can kill them in 2 or 3 turns instead of 4 or 5. The Surveil is nice and all. Filtering your draws is kind of important if you've kept a land light hand or a land heavy hand and you're trying to dig for action or dig for your lands. But I just think the 2 damage that this deals and the fact that you can cast it on almost any mana configuration on turn 3 is really good. 2 Chemister's Insight. I wanted to play more of these. I was playing, I think, 3 originally, and there's 4 in my blue-red version of this deck. But I think that on the draw, you don't want to have too many... You don't want to be too clunky on the draw, because then it means your opponent can just overrun you by doing very simplistic things. Like, them playing on curve and you playing on curve is much better when they're on the... It's kind of hard to explain, but essentially, if you're playing on curve and they're playing on curve, whoever was going first has the advantage, because they're able to cast their cards first. So on turn 4, if they're casting a creature, and on turn 4 you're doing this, your opponent is so far ahead because they have a board state, and you haven't done anything to them. You haven't killed their creature. You haven't added to your board. You haven't done anything. So, obviously, control decks need card draw because you're burning through so many resources, but you don't want too many card draw spells. Because if your card draw keeps finding card draw, then you're not going to have enough to deal with what your opponent's doing. So, that does it for the instance. For the sorceries, I play 4 Deafening Clarion and 2 Cleansing Nova. I was playing Settle in the main instead of Nova for a while, and I just found Nova to be the infinitely better card in the main deck. The fact that this says destroy all artifacts and enchantments comes up in random matchups. Like, at F&M yesterday, I played against a blue-black artifact deck that was playing Tezzeret Artifice Master, and it was just making a whole bunch of random artifact tokens, and I just cast this, blew up his entire board, and then was able to curve in a Niv and just kill him, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if this was a Subtle Wreckage. Also, against like green-white tokens, you can snag their Benalias, their Immortal Suns, and their Conclave Tribunals. Against big red, you get to snag their treasure maps. And if worse comes to worse, it still is just a Wrath of God. It helps you out your opponent's Carnage Tyrants, or their Galtas or whatever, so... And Deafening Clarion is just busted. Like, the fact that you can cast this, none of your stuff dies, and then your guys gain lifelink, so you're able to deal with all the weenie decks, really, really good. 2S Kanto. This card is broken. I don't have to tell that to you. This card is infinitely better in Treasure Map every time. This card's way better. Don't play Treasure Map. Card is shit. And then 2 Teferi, 2 Ral. So, Teferi's really fucking slow. And the thing is, we're in a format where turning the corner and getting your opponent dead is more important than ever in these control mirrors, because Niv is just, again, the best card in Standard, and that card kills really quickly, so you need to be able to kill just as fast, if not faster, than your opponent. We can't dawdle around and do Teferi nonsense like we could last format, where you just built your deck around playing 4 Teferi and then just making your opponent deck themselves. You can't do that anymore. It's not effective. It's too slow. Your opponent can just kill you by casting creatures. So, and because Teferi tucking is not an effective form of removal anymore, just 3 cards. Again, in last format, it was good enough because decks were just... You were either playing the Teferi deck yourself or you were playing the mono-red deck, where 3 cards actually, like, it took you 3 turns to get to those cards, where in this format, you can draw 3 cards on your own fucking turn with a Niv Mizzet, or just by casting a bunch of cantrips in the blue-red deck. Even the green-white decks have access to Vivian Reed and Vraska and just wasted, like, dig through cards so they can get that card back on their next turn. And Ral is actually insane. It comes in with higher loyalty than Teferi. It kills Niv Mizzet in the mirror, which is really important because, again, at my PPTQ, my opponent just played their Niv out on turn 6. This was round 2. My opponent just went Niv on turn 6. I cast this, and they just scooped. Because I was able to minus this, kill their Niv. They're behind. I still have a Planeswalker on board, and I can start getting card advantage every turn. So, and this emblem actually kills your opponent. Like, you just cast 2 or 3 spells, and they just die. So, also, I only have 2 Teferi and 2 Ral, so... but this ratio has been perfect. I actually don't think you want to play 4 Teferi in this deck. I think it's too slow. I've been liking 2 Teferi, 2 Ral, as have my teammates. So, that's it for the main deck. 60 cards, Batman, my Azcantas, my Teferi emblem, and a bunch of Goblin tokens, as you'll see momentarily. The only thing you could, in theory, change about the main deck, you could try out some Revitalizes. I haven't really liked that card. It just hasn't done enough in the mirror. And gaining 3 life against Golgari does actually nothing, so... for the sideboard, 2 Legion Warboss. It's great. I like bringing it in for the mirror match because they're taking... both of you are just taking out all your removal spells, so it's very hard to kill because it comes down so early. And I like bringing it in against Golgari because their only effective removal spell is Chupacabra. And by the time they get to Chupacabra, you've already made 2 or 3 Goblin tokens, so you still have board presence. You're able to block their big creatures. You're able to stabilize. You're able to keep your life total high enough for you to get to your Drake, your Ral, your Niv, and take over the game. So, 2 Settle the Wreckage for White Weenie, and for just green-white tokens, just any go-wide deck. You don't want to bring this in against Mono Red because they're playing Experimental Frenzy, and getting the lands out of their deck means they are less likely to miss off Frenzy. 4 Negate, I think it's the best counterspell in the format. 1 Invoke the Divine for the mirror for green-white and for black-green. Not for black-green. For red-white. 2 Lava Coil for mono-red. Just for anything playing Rekindling Phoenix, honestly. 2 Seal Away for any of the Adanto Vanguard decks. 1 Banefire for the mirror, or for any game you think is going to go long, you just want a way to kill them. And 1 Ixalan's Binding for the mirror, for green-black, and for mono-white. Because if you put this on a History of Benalia or a Venerated Loxodon, your opponent doesn't have a lot of ways to win anymore. So that is going to do it for my Jeskai Control deck tech for Guilds of Ravnica Standard. This deck is super fun. This is totally my playstyle. It's a deck that I've been doing pretty well with in my last few events. Like I said, I got 10th at my last PPTQ. There are a few more PPTQs going on this season, so I plan on doing those, and more than likely I'll play this deck. So, if you have the cards lying around, or if you know somebody who has the deck built and you think you might like it, ask them if you can borrow it for an FNM or 2. This deck is super fun. It's super powerful. I think it is the best deck in the format, although most people make the consensus that Golgari is the best deck, but if Golgari is best, then this is second best. So this deck is super busted, and most of the matches you play are pretty interactive. They're pretty fun. There's a lot of decision tree on both you and your opponent, where one misplay on either side can swing the match entirely in the other player's favor. So if you have any questions about my card choices, or how to play the deck, or anything, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'll be more than willing to answer them. And like I said at the beginning, Facebook and Twitter are in the description. Go follow me and add me as a friend. I post cool shit. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Nick from Team Table 501, and get good, scrubs. I'll see you next time.